And God said, "Let there be
The
light."
Lord says, "Let my people go."
I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.
This is the Talkin' Bible podcast.
Hello, folks. Welcome to today's episode. You're laughing because there was a pause.
Yeah.
Do you know why there was a pause?
Why?
Because when we're editing, you need a pause to be able to see where it starts so you can clip out all the... Because you and I have been talking for like 2 minutes in between.
Yeah, right.
So we put a pause in there so that we can easily find the edit.
Right.
It seemed like an awkward long silence.
It was. It was an awkward long silence, and I was looking at your face like, like on the home shopping channels.
It was like that. That was the pause. Let's do it again. Hello, folks.
Hi.
Welcome to Talkin' Bible. My name is Rowan Bell, and I'm sitting down with Amanda Bartley. And Amanda, you haven't been on screen yet, but now I'm putting you on screen.
Hello,
You're on
everybody.
screen. All right.
You can leave
That
me
was
off screen.
That was like take 2, but we got there. Okay. Today we've got a curly one. This is one of the few times in the year when we are outside of the Gospels. I actually recorded one of these with Shannon last night, which will be out next week too. Jesus' words to the church. I think we did the church at Ephesus. No, it wasn't with Shannon. It was with Jeannie.
Mm-hmm.
But this one is Jesus' words in the book of Revelation, chapter 3, to the church at Philadelphia. And so the only scriptures that are in red letters outside of the Gospels are the scriptures of Jesus speaking to the 7 churches in Revelation, and one quote in the book of Acts that Paul gives about Jesus saying it is more blessed to give than receive. They're the only red letters that appear outside the Gospels. And interestingly enough, Jesus' words is more blessed to give than receive, which Paul says. He says these are the words that Jesus said himself, the Lord blessed to give. It's ironic that those words are not recorded anywhere in the Gospels.
Oh, yeah. Right.
They're recorded in book of Acts as something Jesus said, but they're not recorded anywhere in the Gospels.
Wow.
And yet, they're all over the Gospels.
And it's something that the whole world kind of knows. Maybe because
ironically,
of,
we know that because of Christian message, don't we?
Yeah, but no, I mean like non-Christian people would know that because of Scrooge.
Exactly. They would know. They would know. Well, you got to realise that
It
Charles
is more
Dickens
blessed to receive.
Charles Dickens wrote that because of a Christian conviction.
Yeah, but
yes, that's right. They would understand that. And yet this, so that's the only passages. So we're going to look at this one, which is one of the more. They're all pretty challenging. These 7 letters, aren't they? Lots of imagery.
I'm just laughing at myself because I did the Timothy voice from the night before Christmas.
The night before Christmas. I know. I picked up on that. Up on that. Okay, let's do Revelation chapter 3, 7 to 13. So maybe the way to do this, you said, might be just to do it in piecemeal, bit by bit. So
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
right,
let's do
kick us
that.
off.
So let's break it down because, this is a big one. So hopefully you've read this before you've listened to it.
If not, we're
we're going to read it as we go. So, okay, so verse 7. Write this letter to the angel of the church in Philadelphia. This is the message from the one who is holy and true, the one who has the key of David. What he opens, no one can close, and what he closes, no one can open. All right, we'll stop there. One verse in. Who's Jesus talking to? Who is the church in Philadelphia?
Well, it's not Philadelphia in the United States. Let's just start
I
with
like
that.
Philly cheese.
You like Philly cheese?
And Philly steak sandwiches. I used to love them. Not so much anymore.
So it's not the cheese. It's not where the cheese is made. And it's not the United States because the Philadelphia in the United States is named after this place, actually.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool to know.
So I have to get rid of now. You've got me. The word philo means friend. So there's a friendship thing here, and Delphia will be some kind of goddess, I think. So I don't know.
So it's not actually a letter to a particular church at a place.
Yes, it is. The place was called Philadelphia. It was an
right,
actual
okay.
town. It's in southwest Turkey. Mm-hmm. Or in fact, all 7 churches that are listed in Revelation 2 and 3 that John was writing to on behalf of Jesus were all 7 churches up and down what they call the Meander Valley, which is where we get the word meander. The word meander to wander. It actually comes from this river because this river system meanders all over the place. That was the name of the river.
That's cool.
The term comes from the river. And up and down this meander from Ephesus all the way up to Laodicea, it's just most of the churches. There's a couple that are slightly further away, but they're all within a few days' journey of each other, these 7 churches.
Right.
And Philadelphia is one of these churches that John obviously was the pastor of or was an apostle, had ministered to at this time. So it's in southwestern Turkey. You can look at it on a map. That's where it was. And it was a church that was, it would seem like it was under some persecution. We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay, cool. So this is the message from the one who is holy and true. I'm assuming is just like reestablishing, hey guys, this is me. This is Jesus talking.
But in every one of these letters, you can break them down phrase by phrase, and they all follow a similar pattern. Jesus introduces himself. He says something about himself, like I'm holy and true. This is who I'm writing to, and he uses some kind of metaphor, like this one, the one who has the key of David, is what he says.
What's the key of David?
So that will be a reference to the book of Isaiah. I'm going to go 20-something, Isaiah 20-something. Which is a reference, Isaiah. You're just guessing. You're just joking at me. 20-something.
I'm just laughing because you're a walking dictionary, a walking concordance.
Well, I can't give you the exact chapter, I'm afraid. So there's a guy in there, and his name escapes me too, which is frustrating because I should know his name. He is.
We're not all perfect.
We're not all perfect. Yeah. So this guy is being given the keys to the kingdom. God's saying through Isaiah, I'm going to give this guy and your household, I'm taking the keys of David's kingdom off this other guy. And I remember the other guy's name. I think his name was Shebna. And he was the governor, or to be given the keys was like to be given the authority.
Yeah, right. Cool.
And the reference is like to be given, the ability to use the king's signet ring and all that kind of stuff. It's a similar sort of thing. To have the keys was obviously an analogy for authority. I will give you the keys to the kingdom. We understand what that means. It's the authority of the kingdom. And so this guy, Shebna, I think it wasn't being faithful with those keys and representing the Lord and his kingdom. Right. And building his own kingdom, basically, his own power. And so through Isaiah, God says, I'm going to take them off you and I'm going to give them to, I can't think of the guy's name. I'm going to give them to this other guy. And it says what he has, what he opens, nothing will be able to shut. Yeah. So that is the reference here. Jesus is saying, hey, I've actually got those keys. Okay, I've got those keys. You're going to see it in a moment because he says, I know the things you do and I've opened a door for you and no one can close it. So when they're hearing this, it's full of Jewish imagery. It's the authority of the kingdom of David. Jesus is saying, I have the keys. I'm holy and true and I have the keys. And if I say something, it'll get done. So he's stamping his authority, encouraging them with his authority. What I open, no one can close, and what I close, no one can open.
So it says, I know all the things you do, and I've opened the door for you that no one can close. So he's repeating himself. Yep. But what is this door? Will they have understood what door he's talking about? Or is it, again, using imagery?
It's probably using imagery, but it's relevant. I think we need to try to look at the rest of the context. So let's just, if you look at verse 8, he says, I'm opening a door for you no one can close. You have little strength, yet you obeyed my word and did not deny me. Look, I'm going to force those who belong to Satan's synagogue, those liars who say they are Jews but are not, to come and bow down at your feet, and they will acknowledge you are the ones I love. So it would seem that these Christians are getting some persecution from this quote-unquote Satan of synagogue, or synagogue of Satan. What does that mean? Well, the word that says synagogue there is the best thing what scholars would indicate it is saying is that these are probably a group of Jewish people which were claiming to be persecuting Christians. It's like Paul had all the way through, Jews who persecuted Christians, who refused to acknowledge Jesus. And somehow they're probably suffering persecution at the hands of these Jews in Philadelphia, and they're a powerful force. And they might feel like the door is closed for ministry. They might feel like they've got no recourse, no action. They can't. They're being persecuted, ostracized, looked down upon. And Jesus, the one who has got the ultimate key, says it might look like that door's closed, but guess what? I'm going to open that door for you. Right. And when I open that door, those very people who are persecuting you, who are trying to close the door to you, they can't close it. I will open it. Yes, you might go through some persecution, but I will open that door and they will come and bow down at your feet and acknowledge you are the ones I love, which seems to indicate they will at least come to a point of acknowledgement, if not acknowledgement of Christ, acknowledgement that these Christians, these persecuted Christians, are are on the right side.
Yeah. There's going to be some sort of sign to make them go, whoa, like,
Something. Yeah.
oh, these guys, they had it right all along.
Yes.
We were wrong. I'm sorry. Like the bow down at your feet thing kind of, to me, indicates some sort of apology.
Apology or acknowledgement or recognition. Yes, that's right. Whether it's apology or whether it's... So you can bow at someone's feet out of apology or you can bow at someone's feet out of recognition. It could be either.
Or respect.
Or respect. Sometimes you don't want to, but you've got no choice. That kind of thing. So it could be any of those things. But there's a sense in which he's trying to tell these people who feel inferior, who feel persecuted, who feel hopeless, like the door is closed in their face, to realize... Actually, when I open a door, when Jesus opens a door, it doesn't matter what power comes against you, it's going to be okay. Because he's going to go on. He's going to say, you've obeyed my command to persevere. You kept going even when it felt like the door was shut in your face. Even when it felt hard. You've obeyed my command to persevere, and I'm going to protect you from a great time of testing that will come upon the whole world to test those who belong to the world.
Can we pause there?
Yep.
Is this the 7 years of tribulation?
Well, that's how it's interpreted by one branch of the Christian church, the Great Tribulation. I don't think that's what it's referring to anymore. I used to.
What do you think it's referring to?
I think it was very likely a time of persecution that was coming upon the church and in their time.
Right.
Not 2,000 plus years in the future.
Yeah, right.
I think, and I've come to realize the book of Revelation, and go back and listen to our sermons about book of Revelation that we did at the end of 2024. We did midway through 2024 or something. We did a whole stack of stuff on this, and I've come to realize that it's cyclical, but there is always times of persecution upon the earth, and it's applied whatever persecution you face. This was as applicable to these people as it would be at any time in history. So when you and I sit here and go, oh, it's just referring to the future final test of time that's coming upon the earth, that makes no context for people
It's like
in Philadelphia.
he's jumped from talking to them to talking about the future.
Some ambient time, some arbitrary time in the future.
You're all over the place. It's kind of like me and chasing the rabbit that I quite often do in conversations.
It seems like that. No,
start with one and then go to another. No, sorry, he didn't have ADHD.
So clearly here Jesus is saying something that's relevant to them. So he's saying, look, there's going to come a time of persecution. It's going to
get worse.
It might even get worse. But I've got a door that's open. And if you just persevere, you will see fruit.
Yeah.
In your life, and you will see fruit in other people's lives. But you have to hold on. You have to keep going. You have to persevere even through that time of testing. I'll protect you from it. You won't have to go through some of that. What does that mean? I don't know. I mean, there's just some kind of supernatural protection. But we know that many people were still martyred for their faith. So you would argue they weren't protected. But maybe they were protected because ultimately they were protected from they got to be with the Lord in the end.
Yeah,
so got to take a bigger picture here.
Yeah, right. I'm coming soon. Hold on to what you have. What is he talking about? Earthly possession there. Hold on to what you have. Is it like knowledge, faith?
I think
belief in him?
Hold on to the message. Stay the course. Stay faithful to serve him.
Yeah.
Don't conform to the ways of the world that want you to be like them, because the persecution would very much have been, well, if you deny Jesus, we'll accept you back. If you deny Jesus, you can come back and do business with us. Economic requirements. Oftentimes in this early church, if they, and it's the same in large parts of the world today. I talked about this when we talked about persecution at our Wallandilly and MacArthur locations this last week. Oftentimes persecution, especially in this time, had economic implications. If you were a Christian, and you still do, if you're a Christian and you're in an anti-Christian world, and you're a business person who's trying to do business with people, and they won't do business with you, that has effects on your family, your ability to make money, to pay the bills, to feed yourself, feed your family. So persecution wasn't always being burned at the stake. That was the extreme of it. But it had implication in how you lived your life. And so in this context here, they would have had some of that. Hey, if you just deny Jesus, we'll do business with you again. Come be one of us. And they had to hold on. They had to stay the course, hold on to what they had. Don't let go of Jesus. What did they have? They had Jesus. Yeah. Hang on to Jesus.
So the crown.
That's a pretty good promise, isn't it?
Yeah, but so that no one will take away your crown. They've already got a crown.
Yes.
I don't have a crown. I want a crown.
You do have a crown.
What is this crown?
Okay, so there's lots of imagery to crowns in.
Can it look
the
like
scripture.
Kate Middleton's really nice one that she wore to the coronation?
I think it might actually be referring. It might be referring to the one Jesus was wearing on his head.
Yeah.
Yes. So the crown is a mark of authority. So I reckon that's more what it's about here. The crown is a symbol in the book of Revelation of being given authority. To wear a crown. Jesus wears a crown, but he also gives crowns. The elders have 24 crowns, and they lay them down before the Lord. So that's the picture here, is that it's a sign of authority. No one are going to take that away from you if you just stay the course.
And all who are victorious will become pillars in the temple of my God, and they will never have to leave it. So it's, backing up what you said already, right? Like, no matter what, you're going to be part of the kingdom.
Amen.
And I will write, okay, so this part, and I will write on them the name of my God. So, okay, it's what, like, actually write on them.
Physically write on them,
And they will be citizens in the city of my God.
Yep.
The new Jerusalem that comes down from heaven from my God. And I will also write on them my new name. Okay, so first of all, are we all getting tattoos?
Yeah, we inked up.
Second of all, what the new Jerusalem, where does that come into this context and for these people?
Yeah.
Like, that's coming down from heaven from my God. And thirdly, what is his new name? And I will also write on them my new name. What's Jesus' new name?
So if you keep reading the book, it's a little invitation to keep reading the book of Revelation. Have you got notes in front of you? Here's my guess.
Yeah.
So it's a little invitation to keep reading. So at the end of the book, we'll see the new Jerusalem come down out of heaven, God's fulfilling kingdom, and they'll be a part of that. To have the Father's name, I imagine, I don't know for sure, I can't recall, I probably have heard it, but I can't recall what it means to have the name written on them. It would be, to have the name written would be to be marked by that person, to be owned by that person.
Like a servant would have, like,
yes,
hey,
like exactly.
I belong
like
to, like back in the day, Joseph would have, when he got sold,
would have
been marked.
So, like a brand.
Yeah.
Like brand. So
vicious,
farmers
isn't it?
brand animals, so they know that cattle belongs to them. Well, sadly so, in ancient times they would mark a slave as well. And so I think that's what it's using that imagery of marking, but it's saying you belong to God.
Yeah.
And now Jesus is coming along and saying, actually, you get my name as well.
Yeah.
And I think it probably is a link. You can check if I'm wrong. It is a link to when Jesus has a mark on him, King of Kings and Lord of Lords, that particular reference to Jesus. Is that what your notes say? It's just my guess.
No, not the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, but yeah, pretty much. And also, just a really big writing, don't be afraid of revelations.
No, don't be afraid of it.
It's not all doom and gloom, people. It is it's
actually
poetry.
It's poetry, and it's actually a very encouraging story.
And you can take it verse by verse.
Yep. You should, actually, because it's so dense with imagery from the Old Testament and from actual stuff that was known at the time, like the hot and cold springs. When he says you're hot and cold, that was actually a thing. Or to get salve for your eyes, that was actually a thing that they did. That particular city was known for creating salve to heal people of their eye problems.
Right.
So it's rich with imagery that you need to take verse by verse. But when you do, it comes to life.
Yeah, that's good.
And it is an encouraging book. It's not a frightening book. A little bit like, I like to say, it's a little bit like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Because it's got an encouraging story, but C.S. Lewis wrote it as a children's story, so it's got fantasy in it. But you could easily take a fantasy writer could take C.S. Lewis's Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe stories and turn them into something considerably more violent and dark.
Yeah,
that would put it probably more like this.
Yeah, interesting.
Because there's monsters in there. It's just that it's written in such a way that kind of desensitizes it so that a 9-year-old kid can read it.
Yeah,
but it could easily be turned into an adult's story and not be quite so whitewashed, but it'd be the same story. And so Revelation is like C.S. Lewis for adults. That's how to view it.
I like it. I like it a lot.
And the good news about C.S. Lewis is that it is meant to be a good story. In the end, the witch dies.
Yeah.
In the end, Aslan wins.
Yeah.
And that's what he's written. He's written a parody that is very similar to what the revelation of John is all about.
Yeah. So I guess to wrap up, anyone with ears to hear must listen to the Spirit and understand what he's saying to the churches. I think that is to all of us.
Yeah.
Listen to the Spirit.
And that is something it says to every church.
Yeah. So every church, listen to the Spirit. To every person that's listening, as you read Revelation, listen to the Spirit. Take it verse by verse.
Yep.
It is
and recognize
rich
this.
with not just imagery, but it's rich with things that we can learn.
Well, it's promises.
It's promises.
This is the thing, is every one of these 7 churches has a promise attached to it. If you do this, this will be a good result. Stay the course, this will be a good result. Turn away from that thing, this will be a good result. And it's worth noting, these 7 churches, I said, are all reasonably close to each other, and yet Jesus has something different to say to every church. So I think that's important for us to know, is when we say, what's Jesus saying to the church today, there is a sense in which he might be working in our nation. But in any given church, it's full of certain people with certain issues and certain culture and so on. And so Jesus will say something different to every church because he's working on trying to correct or direct something in every church. So that's why we can't, as a pastor, we're about to go to conference next week. We can't go away and we can't suddenly go, let's just en masse adapt everything everyone else is saying. Oh, I heard someone say something. It must be right. It might be right for their church, but we need to run it through the filter of, is it right for our church? So we can't, because otherwise we'll end up just jumping from thing to thing to thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we can't learn. We can. But we have to say, Lord, how does this work within the context of what you're saying to our church? And same for our lives. What God might be saying to me is going to be different to what God's saying to you because he's working on a different thing in the Bartley household to what he's working on in the Bell household. And so we have to have ears to hear that. He who has ears, the one who has ears, let them hear. So be tuned in. Lord, help me. What are you saying to me? How can I grow? How can I learn?
That's good. And I guess one more question for anyone that is just starting to read Revelations, because I certainly didn't really touch on it much in my younger years. If in doubt, and I guess who aren't particularly great at interpreting metaphors and understanding these contexts, what can they do to help? What can they do to help themselves figure that stuff out without going down the rabbit hole and seeing lots of doom and
getting involved
glooms?
in the wrong thing?
Yes.
So 2 simple books that we use that I can recommend, and I have talked about it before when we did it last year, is Revelation for Everyone by N.T. Wright. That was a good one, Revelation for Everyone. And another one was by Scott McKnight, is Revelation for the Rest of Us. 2 easy to read, popular books. They're by scholars, but they're not scholarly books. They're written at a popular level, which means they're open to any of us to read. There's another one called Reading Revelation Responsibly. I've got all 3 in my Kindle. I'm just looking them up. Reading Revelation Responsibly. Revelation for Everyone by Tom Wright or N.T. Wright. And Revelation for the Rest of Us. 3 easy to read books. Certainly the Tom Wright and the Scott McKnight one are probably even easier than the Reading Revelation Responsibly. It's probably slightly more academic from memory. But good place to start if you want to get a handle on the book of Revelation, or go back, search through our podcast history and find, or on a YouTube channel and find the sermons that we did on Revelation.
Yeah, that's good.
Over a period of time.
I've just written the Scott McKnight one down because you've told me about a
Scott
McKnight book before, but not this one. I haven't read that one, but I've read the N.T. Wright one. I think you told me about that last year.
I probably would have told you about a few Scott McKnight books over different times.
Yeah. But the N.T. Wright one, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I haven't read the other one either. I've just written them all down.
Yeah. Good way to start in the book of Revelation. All right, well, that's enough for this week.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks. We'll keep recording, and these next week's episodes the next episodes will be ready in 2 months.
2 months.
All right.
And I'll be away then. So.
You will be away then. You will be away when they come out.
See you guys.
See you, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.